Hello, welcome to Dandelion Dreams podcast. My name is Julia Mason. My husband and I live on the west side of Oregon in a small town with our two daughters, Felicity and Daisy. We live in a rural little community out here, and we are sheep farmers. If this is your first time viewing, otherwise you already know all of this. We raise polypay sheep for lamb and also for wool. And right now is lambing season, so I'm a little worn out and tired. And funny story, if you watched last week's episode, I said we were in lambing season then, but our dates were completely off. I wrote all of the breeding dates on my phone in the notes, and my I don't know if you're familiar with raising sheep, but we put like a grease marker on the ram's chest, and so when he breeds a ewe, there's a mark, and so you know what day everyone is bred. Well, I wrote all the dates down in my phone, and I used an online calculator for lambing estimates, and I don't know if I estimated wrong or what happened, but when I went back and looked at my notes, Felicity had gone in my phone one day and kind of like she'd erased a bunch and written random letters and messed it all up, and so it was really unclear when things had gotten bred. And then yeah, but I think I also must have entered the dates incorrectly on the calculator, because I did that when the ewes were bred, and it was like said 2 weeks earlier than the true breeding date or lambing dates. So we felt like we were super last minute getting the barn cleaned and getting everything ready, because the sheep are generally just out on pasture and they can handle the weather just fine. So we had to get the barn ready for them to be able to come in and spend all that time inside. So we were cleaning, and we stayed up super late the night before the first doe was due, and cleaned the barn together and got it finished and ready, and everyone bedded down, and we were all excited. And then we just waited and waited and waited, and nothing was happening. And so I finally was like, this is getting to be ridiculous. They can't be this late. It just doesn't happen that way, and they're all obviously bred. So I looked at my phones or my old phone, which is what I had all the records written down on, and was like, oh, this is all messed up. So I finally kind of figured out that we were a couple weeks early, which in a way is good because we were very prepared, but in a way it stinks because I was getting up to check the cameras multiple times a night for a really long time for no reason. So, oh, man, when I feel like making this podcast makes me more aware of like how ditzy I am. Like, I do really dumb things sometimes, and it's entertaining to me. But anyways, I'm the one who has to bear the consequences, so I guess that's fine. So yeah, we have been having an okay lambing season so far. We've had 4 ewes lamb. The first 2 were singles, which is a huge bummer, honestly. It's okay. I mean, they came out healthy. They didn't get stuck. The ewes are fine. Everyone's great. But singles are never really what you want to have. They will turn out larger than a twin by the end of their life cycle, and so they will still be profitable, but it's always better if your ewes are prolific. I think probably what was going on there was we don't flush our ewes. That's a practice where you feed them grain prior to breeding to get them to drop more eggs per ovulation and produce more multiples. So, but we don't do that because with the breed there's a risk of producing too many lambs and the ewes not being able to feed them all. So we didn't flush them, but we just started feeding a slightly higher quality hay around breeding time, and I think that it didn't have enough time to have an effect until some of the later ewes were getting bred. So I think the first 2 probably got bred right off the bat, and the richer food hadn't had time to have an effect. So I don't really hold it against the ewes that much. I think because, well, one of them has singled before, and so she may not end up being one that we save lambs out of. But anyways, yeah, so I don't really blame the ewes. I think it's a management issue, which we will do better this time, you know, live and learn. And but then we had a ewe lamb. She's not a lamb, she's actually two, but it's her first lambing. Produce her first set of twins, and they were enormous. Like, one of them was 12 pounds, which is really large. It was, yeah, shocking kind of how big they were. So, sadly, she, was kind of acting like she was doing something. She had some leakage all day, and I hadn't had to reach in and pull lambs yet, and I was reticent to do that. I didn't want to make the problem worse, and I was trying to get a hold of some more experienced farmers that we bought our ewes from to get advice whether or not that was the right call. When I finally got a hold of them, they said, yeah, it's a hard call with first-timers. They don't always lamb quickly, but go ahead and reach in and see what's going on in there. And she, I think, had just been fighting the process because she was scared because it was her first time. And so I think she had dilated and was progressing, and then got spooked and just felt uncomfortable and was trying to prevent it from going any further because she was freaked out. So it felt like she had actually started to close up again. And so I pulled the first lamb, and he was huge. That was the 12-pound lamb. And he came out alive, but kind of stressed, and definitely had inhaled a lot of fluid. And then we pulled the second lamb, and the second lamb came out dead. It had the placenta come out with it, which if the placenta detaches while they're still inside, that cuts off their supply of oxygen. So she was dead. We tried to just, do whatever you can to revive them just in case, but it was pretty, kind of pointless because we knew she was gone. But the sad part was that first lamb, who was huge and would have been a very robust, strong lamb, because the distressed lamb, the one who had passed away, had passed fecal matter in the womb, he had breathed that in. He got pneumonia, lung infection, like overnight, and was just down. We treated with him with antibiotics, and it didn't do any good. He was so far gone, so he passed away quickly. That was a big bummer. It was a learning experience too, and the folks that helped us over the phone, they were like, don't beat yourself up about it. It happens. You don't always know what the right call is until after the fact. And anyways, it still sucked. I was pretty bummed about that. The only good parts was that I got to learn about pulling lambs, and so that was good to just do it, learn, not have to be like wondering how that was going to be anymore. And it was fine. It was a slow process. I think it took us over an hour to get them both out. So that was good, a learning experience, I guess. Next time I think I would reach in and check much earlier and just get them out, especially on a young ewe like that who's fearful and fighting the process. Also, I'm thinking if we have a lamb that has a deceased sibling, we will treat it with antibiotics as a precaution and just mark like their tag or something to sell them at auction instead of direct sale to our customers. We don't want to sell lambs that have been treated with drugs to our direct sale customers because we pride ourselves in providing a higher quality product than what you can buy in the grocery store. But if we need to treat a lamb to save its life, we will. And we'll just mark that animal as not for sale to direct sale customers and just sell it at the auction. So anyways, those are my lessons learned so far. And just literally right as I was sitting down to do the podcast, I checked our camera over here and there was 2 more babies. So that was good. They're healthy. And in fact, I should probably be checking the camera periodically. It looks like she's still standing up, so she's not laboring anymore. She has 2 lambs. They're both much more normal sized. Everything we've had this year has been quite large. The last set of twins, did I talk about those yet? So we had 2 singles, twins that died. A couple nights ago we had a set of twins that were healthy and great. And I spent most of the night out there with the ewe because that was right after the ones who had died. So I was feeling a little overly protective of them. They're doing great. And then we just had this set born, and they look a lot more normal size. They're like the size of a cat. which is more of a normal size for a lamb. Everything else has been really large. The set that was born a few nights ago that's healthy, they're not crazy huge. They're just big. And they actually do not seem to be getting quite enough milk, so I have been holding the ewe who lost her lambs. I've been holding her and letting them nurse off of her, which works well because that, you know, gives her a chance to nurse babies, so next year she'll be a little more prepared for raising lambs, and it also, you know, just supplements them to make sure they're getting enough. So that's all good. Hey, this is a knitting podcast. I was going to talk about farm things afterwards, but I don't know, whatever. So I guess I'll talk about knitting now. My first finished object, the elephant in the room, is my Aim True hat, and it is quite nice. It's a nice farm hat. It just keeps me very warm. It's a slouchy hat, which I've never really worn slouchy hats. The fabric turned out quite stiff. Obviously the color work is going to be double thickness and quite stiff, so it kind of holds its shape down like this, but if it does pop up when I'm not really prepared or paying attention, I look really funny with it silly looking. But oh, I think I will make a palm for it. I was going to leave it without, but I think I will make a palm for it because I think it'll hold it down better and it'll look pretty. So yeah, and it's turned out pretty nice. It shows up on the camera better than it does in person, actually. And it's funny, prepare yourself for hat hair. The inside, I caught my floats real frequently because I was paranoid about having any bunchiness. So I caught the floats like every other stitch practically. It was so often, which made it a lot more tedious and a lot of work, but it has a nice result. Now I just need to learn to knit like a normal person without catching the floats every 5 seconds. Yeah, so it looks all right, and it is very warm, and I like it. I actually put this on hold for a bit. I got most of the way done and stopped it because I decided to do a test knit for someone. These, for Salapalooza Knits, I did these Mountain Rain socks, and this was a really cool pattern. This is a half object. My other finished object is my daisy blanket, which I've shown on the podcast before, and it's for my daughter Daisy May, and it's not my favorite thing in the world, but it turned out okay, and she's sleeping on it currently, so I couldn't bring it out to show you guys. But anyways, this is the Mountain Rain socks. Just picked some cat hair off of it, and they are really pretty. I'll insert a photo of the of me wearing them because it'll show up the pattern, or show off the pattern better. But it has this beautiful detail in the front and the sides, this lacy pattern, which was really fun to knit, and it was going quite well. I had to start it over because I started it, it's in European sizes and I'm completely unfamiliar with them, and I once again went online and looked at a calculator and got it completely wrong, which is ridiculous because it's not rocket science. But anyway, so I thought I was doing the largest size and that was way too big, so I had to start over. And in the back you have regular stockinette, and then you have the pattern on the leg portion, and it's done as an afterthought heel, which I have never done an afterthought heel before, and I really like the way that it looks, and it was pretty fun to do as well. So I think it's funny, the color worked out so that it's not very visible either. So I think I may do more afterthought heels in the future. And I really loved the way she did her toe increases, and everything about the pattern was just very fun, and it helped me avoid bits that I don't like casting on and counting stitches and making sure you have the correct number of stitches before you start. I always hate that. I don't know why, but I love things like shawls where you have to cast on 3 stitches. It's like, yes. Which is silly because you end up having to count like 50 million other times as you're going along to make sure you still have the right number of stitches. But for some reason, casting on the correct number of stitches irritates me. So I like things where I can start small and grow. Which is another thing that I did not expect to like toe up better, but I do. It's wonderful. So yeah, it is a paint box yarn. I think the colorway was called, it was like in a collection called something Zebra, and I don't remember the specific colorway. I knitted these on my cheap bamboo, like Amazon Prime bulk crappy circular needles. They're just very poor quality needles on like a plastic tube basically that's glued on them. And they work, but they're, especially the smaller sizes, are not very smooth. They're not really sanded very well at all. And then, yeah, so they're kind of catchy on things. So that was kind of slow going. I wanted to get at least one done in her 2-week time period, just to, obviously, because she needed them done. So I just, you know, went with it, even though I didn't really prefer the needles that I had. And these were done on size 2.25. The pattern called for size 2mm, which in hindsight may have been just fine for me, but when I did the swatch, the gauge wasn't quite right. But anyways, I got them done, but I ordered a set of ChiaoGoo red lace in the same size for my second sock because I was like, I'm not gonna do both socks on these needles that I really hate and I would love. And also, I had never done magic loop for socks before. This I did kind of like a magic loop because, and it's funny because I didn't even really realize that's what I was doing. I just had ChiaoGoo red lace size 3.75mm needles, and I had bought them for a sweater that I want to do, but I had the yarn for this and I had the pattern already. So I did those, or did this, and I ended up just doing it kind of like magic loop. So then when I did the socks, with the toe up, it really makes a lot of sense to do magic loop, especially because it makes it really simple to see where your increases are supposed to be and keep track of things. And especially on the base of the sock where the pattern is on a front panel and the back is plain. It's just, everything's divided into 2. It's real simple. So I absolutely loved doing magic loop. And so I ordered these beauties because I figured I will be making lots of socks with magic loop. And I like the 2.25mm diameter needles. So I was pretty happy with those. So I ordered these, decided to start something else before I started these because I was waiting for the needles. So actually have been talking to a designer about doing another test knit, but I didn't have any sport weight. Oh my goodness. This is super bent. What do you want to bet? Another family member sat on my project. Oh well. Anyways, I was talking to another designer about doing a test knit for a baby sweater, but I didn't have any sport weight yarn that wasn't weird. The yarn that I did have that was sport weight was this sock yarn. It's, I think it is sport weight based on the yardage. It may be slightly smaller, slightly closer to fingering weight, but everything else that I have is DK or above. And this though is a patterning yarn, so it has solid stripes, and then in between the solid stripes it has like a speckly bit, and so that wouldn't really work with a baby sweater very well, especially because the body of it, the stripes would be really thin, and then on the arms it would look like socks, like pattern socks. So I had started the project just because I was curious what it would look like, and the pattern has, I think it's called Alpine Peaks, and it has a little bit of color work just at the bottom, and they're white the contrasting color is white, and this has these white sections, so when that would come up, it would totally muddle the color work, and it didn't look good at all. So I just ripped that out. Got quite a ways in there, and then I was like, meh, this isn't working. So I ripped it out and instead cast on, am I done talking about my socks? I think so. So I did all of that before I finally got around to casting on these little guys the other day. And, but I really like this sock yarn. The red sock yarn, well, red and grayish blue, or grayish purple. This stuff is actually a little bit scratchy for my taste. It's probably fairly durable, but we'll see how it wears, and I think it will soften up after I wash and block it. But anyways, this is very, very soft. And this, my Reina shawl that I showed last time is a very soft Malabrigo sock yarn, colorway Ivy, and it's really soft and comfortable, and this is even softer. So I thought it would be fun to make a shawl just as kind of an experiment to see what that stripy colorway would do. I had 2 sets of this, and these are 100-gram balls, so I should be able to make pretty good, oh no, I think this is 150-gram. So I should be able to make pretty big socks, or maybe a couple of pairs of socks anyways, and depending on how long and if I do contrasting heels and cuffs. So this, anyways, I have 2 of them, so that's a lot. I don't need that many socks that are exactly the same. So I wanted to do something unique with this, and I decided to try a shawl, and this is it so far. And it's funny, it's much stripier looking in the camera than it is in person. I mean, you can see that it's stripy, but they really stand out. This is the Stormy Sky shawl, and I think it's on the Life is Cozy website. I could be wrong, I'll write it down. And yeah, it's just an asymmetrical triangular shawl. And I think it will be interesting because the first bit, they're such small rows that the stripes end up being very wide, and they're going to get thinner and thinner, and by the end of it the stripes are going to be so thin, or they may not even reach the width of the shawl, I'm not sure. So it'll look a lot more uniform, I think. I don't know. It'll be so mixed together at the end. I'm hoping that it'll be kind of a interesting effect. So we shall see. But yeah, I think once it's in shawl form and wrapped up around your neck, it'll look pretty fun. This shawl, she puts tassels on, and I may try that. Not sure. But yeah, and these are knitted on those cheap bamboo needles that I'm not a huge fan of. It's actually really amazing how much slower it is to work with these. I have to be a needle pusher when I work with these because it's so reticent to like come off the needle. It takes forever. So, but when I use metal, I don't have that problem. So, yeah, it's fun so far. The problem I've had with this pattern is it may be completely me, but it has garter sections, and this is a free pattern, so I'm not giving anything away, but it has garter sections and this drop stitch section, and then a little yarn over mesh section. And all of it works, and I get the correct stitch count and everything, except for the yarn over section. For some reason, it's like the first row, you repeat the pattern until 2 stitches are left, and then you do something different. Second row, you go until 3 stitches are left, but it never ends up being 3 stitches. It either ends up being 4 or 2. So I ripped it back and did it over exactly the way the pattern said multiple times and got the same result every time. So I don't know, and I didn't really see anything in the comments about that, so I don't know why I'm having a problem when other people apparently didn't. So I've just been going till there's 4 stitches left, knitting 1, yarn over, knit 1, knit, yarn over, knit, and then doing the increase, and then knitting 1, and then turning. So it's been working out okay. I did have one section where my count was off, and I increased more than I should in one section, and I'm hoping that it doesn't stand out too much, like that it gets wider suddenly, but anyways, this is more of a fun project, and it's such a relaxed, almost recipe type of pattern where I don't feel overly invested in it being perfect. I really just want it to be wearable and pretty. So as long as it continues to be wearable and pretty, I'm going to keep going. Yeah, so that's that. That is pretty much, oh no, I have a little bit left. Just a little bit. I have not, I mean, I've been doing some knitting, but not as much as I would like. This, I already showed you, this half object is the sock that I made for my husband. I really need to get sock blockers. And yeah, I don't know. I'm okay-ish happy with it. And these were done on 2.75 millimeter red lace Chow-Gu 9-inch circulars. I feel like that was a lot of words. It felt like a word salad. Okay, so this is my second sock, and it's not that much farther along than it was last time you guys saw it. And I'm not sure what I'm doing differently with the heel. This one I followed a video very closely. I think maybe I did fewer stitches in between, and maybe I didn't. Maybe I slipped the ends. I'm not sure. But I followed Mina's vanilla sock recipe very closely when I did this heel, because it was my first German short row heel. And it turned out really nice. And then this one I've just been doing from memory because I'm like, I'm so cool, I got this. And now it looks goofy. So I think I may be ripping this back and just trying again because I don't know what I did. It looks really silly. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what I did, but that's okay. I'll just try again. And that'll be nice to have those done. I really like the colorway, but it's an extremely scratchy sock yarn, so I'm looking forward to not touching it anymore. And hopefully it'll be reasonably comfortable, and that's just living in this little cami bag, and which is great for going around on the go. And the other projects have been living in these, that's my cute little tin that I keep notions in, and these are just the bags that the I Love Knitting website sends yarn in. So they work really well for project bags. They don't grip yarn at all. So that's that. We actually had, I forgot to tell this story. I don't know if you guys will like this story or hate it, but the week before I recorded my last podcast, actually, a ewe turned up with, they come up to the fence line to eat, and she was trying to eat a little bit and then just spitting the hay out, and immediately I was like, uh-oh, something's not good. And I noticed she even had a little bit of blood on the hay that she spit out. So I was like, ooh, and it was night, so I couldn't really see very well. I had a flashlight. And so I was like, ah, crap, this is not good. So I called Nicholas because I could see immediately once I paid attention, she had a big old bulge right here. She had a little bit of wool, and if you've seen pictures of our sheep, you can see that we shear them ourselves, and they're a bit goofy looking. There's like the edges, there's just a little scraggliness. So we missed a little bit of wool right here, and she had an abscess under there that was just hiding, and not quite sure what it was. I'm pretty positive that it was an infected salivary gland, because we put the girls to bed and went out and actually I think my mom was watching Daisy, but anyways, went out and caught the sheep up in the barn and flipped her back on her butt, and I held on to her for Nicholas, and he we sterilized it and then used a scalpel and just poked right in there. And when it popped, oh my goodness, if you're a popaholic type person, it was so gloriously disgusting. It was crazy. So much pus came out. It was insane. It was just streaming out. So that was really disgusting and wonderful. And I felt so sorry for her and worried for her, because she's a ewe that tends to have triplets, and she tends to get kind of run down really easily. Her fleece is kind of always on the thin side. It's like she never really is robust or thriving. I don't know what her deal is, but I mean, having triplets and being able to feed them all, which she will do, is really hard on their system. But yeah, anyways, she just always seems to be thinner than everyone else and have issues like that. So I was already kind of like, oh, this is a lot of stress close to lambing time. Good thing lambing time was another 2 weeks away, even though I was thinking it was the next week. So yeah, Nicholas got all the gunk out, and it was like, oh, I shouldn't even go into describing it. It was pretty gross. And then we gave her a shot of antibiotics and let her go, and she seemed okay. And by the next day though, I fed out another bale, and she, you know, ran up and was eating just fine. And it was crazy because she had saliva, clear saliva, just running out of the hole in her chin, because I think it was, like I said, it was a salivary gland that we had to puncture. And when they see food, obviously they start salivating like everybody does. So she just had it just streaming out in these long clear strings, which was great because it kept it flushed and healthy, and she healed up perfectly and is doing great. And she's huge. She's so wide at this point because she's getting ready to have her babies, that it's like her wool on her belly is almost falling out because I think her skin is stretched so tight. I feel so bad for her. I'm just like, oh, I've been there. I know your pain, sheep. That's the hard thing about helping with lambing, is it's like, I understand. That sucks. At least for them, it's like a couple of hours and not like an entire day. But yeah, so I'm trying to think if anything else has been going on in life. Yeah, mostly just lambing season and being busy with that. I can't really leave for any length of time, so because I've got to check them pretty frequently. Yeah, but anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I'll have more knitting talk for next week. Yeah, like I said, this week I've done some knitting. I have gotten in the habit ever since I started the podcast. That just happened to correlate with doing some farm sitting for a friend, and I had to get up really early to do that. And I really liked that alone time that I got in the morning. So ever since then, I've been getting up, or trying to get up, at 6. And I was really consistent about it until lambing season started. And then there's been a couple of nights when I was up half the night already, so it was like, oh, I'm not gonna get up after I just went to bed like 2 hours ago. So yeah, so I try to knit in the morning when I can find the time to do that, and that's really lovely. But yeah, so I've had a little bit less of that since lambing season has started, which is a bummer. But oh, we also had snow, which, I mean, snow is not highly unusual for our area, but because we live at 1,400 feet elevation and kind of on the foothills of Mount Hood, and it's so we get snow, but not like we got this year. This was beautiful, and it's also February, so usually we're done with snow by this time of year. We had like summertime weather. Not summertime, that's exaggerating. We had like springtime weather. It was beautiful and dry and sunny, and then we had like 8 inches of snow, and then it would melt a little bit during the day, and then the next night we'd have 4 more inches for several nights. It was so wonderful. I just was like in heaven because everything was dry, there was no mud, the sheep's feet improved quite a bit. Yeah, muddy Oregon is quite a problem, but yeah, so it was great. We really had a lot of fun. My husband's a contractor, as some of you may know, and so he got to stay home. He runs his own company, so he just decided, hey, the roads aren't safe, I'm staying home and gonna spend some quality time with the girls. So he was home for like a week. It was really fun. We had a great time. That's when I got most of my knitting on these, or on this done, just because, yeah, I had help, so he helped me with the girls, and I got to knit and watch Disney movies with Felicity, and it was really, really nice time. So yeah, well, thank you guys for watching. I really, really appreciate all of the kind words and support that everyone has been giving me. It's funny, I saw a post the other day about not putting up with online bullying in the knitting community, and I was like, huh, that's weird. I've never seen anyone be mean in the knitting community, which is amazing. And I mean, I agree. I don't want to put up with people bullying either, but thankfully I haven't seen it happen. So keep being awesome, keep being nice to people. And I really appreciate your guys' time in watching this, and let me know if there's anything that you'd like to hear more about. Hopefully I'm trying to get our wool to the mill. I would like to be milling some pounds. I'm not sure how much we were going to do. We have all of this year's fleeces that we could take in. I'm not sure how many pounds it is, and I'm not sure how many pounds we can afford to do at a time, honestly. It's quite expensive to have it milled, but I would like to get a lot done and just offer some up to the community for sale, just to see if anyone's interested in trying polypay yarn. I'm really excited to try yarn from our own flock. I want to spin it as well, but I think it would be really nice to have a lot of it spun. I actually really like the way commercially spun yarn is. I think when I eventually do some hand spinning, it'll be neat and its own thing, but it's not my favorite for every project. It's not as polished as I'd like some things to look. So I think it'll be nice to have some of both. It'll also make it a lot easier to have lots of skeins done and be able to practice dyeing, which will be really fun. What I'll probably be selling will be plain bases that you can dye yourself, but maybe eventually I'll sell dyed stuff. I don't know. I'd have to learn how to dye first. So yeah, if anyone's interested in that, I'd love to hear feedback, whether or not that's something that you would be wanting to try. And I will try and get to the mill. I think it's a couple hours away, and I don't generally have a vehicle during the day. So that's a big part of the reason. So anyways, I really, like I said, appreciate your time. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.